You're listening to The Geek Awakens with Mitch,
Matt,
Tabitha,
and Lydia.
Hey everybody, Mitch here with another edition of the Geek Awakens presents Artist Alley Spotlight. Today I am joined by Chris Sahloff, who is the creator of C.R.I.T, which we're going to talk a lot about that coming up. But Chris, how's it going?
Oh, it's going well, fun Monday.
Yeah, I feel that in my soul.
Yes, it was a Monday, but it was fun. So we'll just, yeah.
So your newest Kickstarter is for C.R.I.T, He Who Would Be King, which is the 8th issue in the C.R.I.T series. So what is the elevator pitch for C.R.I.T?
Well, things are about to change with issue. This is technically the 9th issue, so we do have an issue 0, which always screws up my math. But it's a modern Dungeons and Dragons game turned into a comic book. So it's me and my friends playing superhero D&D, and then I turn it into a comic. So if you're familiar with tabletop gaming, role playing, things like that, and you have a bunch of friends that are idiots, then you're gonna understand C.R.I.T before I even go in any spiel. But it's the story base is my friends are at work one day, this new job that they get, and there's an attack on the facility. Something happens, they gain superpowers, and their boss says, "Hey, now you're my product. You're just going to work for me." And you follow them through the series as, they learn their abilities. They see, bigger things going on in the world, and really make their own decisions as to how to handle that. And so where we're at in the story now is they've actually separated from the employer, and they've started their own coffee company. So they have a coffee shop, because what better way to fund your heroic deeds than to sell coffee? And of course, they can't do that, so they have their talking cat, familiar, chameleon, and owl handle most of it. And then, of course, one of them creates a robot to help out as well. So they let them run the shop while they go out and do their thing. And in this issue, we go into a little bit of a backstory and unveil a story of one of the original heroes of this setting, which is King Arthur. And you hear a little bit about his story and how he was like one of the first heroes, battling Medusa, things like that. So we go into that backstory of him. And I like to tell people, really, it's a story about friends overcoming challenges together to really decide and their actions really dictate whether or not they're truly heroes.
So I just got to say, you already sold me with superheroes and coffee. It's like there's not a better combination.
Oh yeah, I mean, so somewhere around here I have a C.R.I.T energy drink. So I did my own energy drinks for one Kickstarter. I have the cat as a stuffed animal. He wears a top hat, a bow tie. He's a proper gentleman, and he smokes cigars and drinks rum, just like I imagine 1,000-year-old cat would do after dealing with humanity for that long. So I describe it with this: like, if you're a fan of My Hero Academia, buddy cop movies like The Other Guys and Police Academy, then you'll like C.R.I.T. It's very, very tongue-in-cheek, very meta, and very meme worthy. So much so that in the end of the most recent issue, I actually have an editor's commentary that says, "Sorry for all the memes." It's around here somewhere. There's a editor's note at the very end, second to last page. "Please forgive us for all the memes. That is all. Back to your regularly scheduled programming." There's so many inside jokes and memes that people who are fans of some of the same nerdy things as us are going to get. There's subtle D&D references because I understand not everybody plays D&D, so I've never overwhelmed the book with like D&D stuff. But I have, put in little toss-ins here and there that, fans of tabletop gaming will get and they'll appreciate.
So you kind of touched on it earlier, but Crit's origin story is not typical. So at what point when you're, like playing this game with your friends, did you guys decide, hey, this would actually be great as a comic?
Um, there wasn't a point. It's that every single D&D game that we've ever played, someone has always said like, "Hey, this would be cool if we did this." Like if you've played D&D before, I'm sure someone in your group was like, "Hey, this would be cool as a book. This would be cool as a movie. This would be cool as a cartoon." Um, what happened was we played one session, we laughed about it for a month, and I said, "Oh, this is fun." So I just start randomly sketching some of the stuff out. And I didn't know how to draw at the time, um, at all. And I'm not a bit embarrassed to say that. I had no artistic talent, but I just wanted to sketch it. So I started kind of just drawing some stuff out. And I put a month or two into this 12 to 16 page story of just their first encounter, which typical D&D style, I put them in, a heist. They got to stop a bank robbery and everything goes wrong. They're not supposed to kill people. They're killing people. It's, they're scaring people because one of them has a face that just lights on fire. And it's, it was just a debacle. And so that's issue 0. And so, you know, it was just so much fun that I had to kind of draw it. And I brought it to the guys. They thought it was fun. It was cool. My wife at the time, my ex-wife is a phenomenal artist. And we were best friends for like 11 years before we even got married. And I showed her the work. And she looked at me after going through all of it. And mind you, I spent months on this. And she said, "It's okay." And she just goes back to what she's doing. Like, no questions, no elaboration, just, "It's okay." And just doesn't even make eye contact, just goes back to what she's doing. And so the next day I went out and I bought an iPad Pro and I got Procreate and started downloading tutorials. And then she would critique everything I was doing. And I said, "Well, why don't you just help me?" Her mom's an art teacher. My daughter is a phenomenal artist as well. So I just let everybody rip apart my art for a few years. And I would continue to draw. And like I put out issue 1 and I thought that would be it. Really? Like I just thought, hey, we'll put one out. It'll be fun. And I'll go on with my life. Well, then everyone's like, "Well, where's issue 2?" And I'm the type of person where if you challenge me on something, I'm just going to do it. So then I was like, well, I should do an issue 2. Issue 2 is this campaign was fun too. And now we're on, the 9th issue of the series, and it doesn't seem like it's going to stop. And I have 42 issues written, so whether
wow.
people like it or not, they're going to get the whole story.
Wow. So you issue 0, if I'm not mistaken, you can read on your website.
Yes, for free.
Okay. And the first 2 issues are available now on Global Comics. I read the first issue last night to kind of prepare. It's a lot of fun. You hit the nail on the head with it being like a buddy cop type of situation. But when you read the first issue, you're going to notice that the 4 main characters share the first names with 4 of the people credited with helping the story, which are your friends. How similar are the comic versions to these characters on the RPG version? And then also, how similar are they to the real life people they're based on?
Well, they are them 100%. The entire premise I gave them was, this is you with superpowers. What do you do? And I'll go into why that is, so people who are fans of tabletop can kind of relate. My friends and I hadn't played D&D as a group in 10 years. And last time we had played, it was D&D 3.5. And we were starting with 5th edition. So rule sets had changed. We hadn't role played as a group in a long time. Some of us hadn't talked in 10 years. So to eliminate any uncomfortableness or like any roadblocks that people would have with like the whole role play aspect, I just said, it's you. What do you do? Makes the decision making very easy, makes the role play very easy. And the characters eventually take a personality kind of their own because of their experiences in the game, so but at the core, Boulder is Terrell, my old roommate and one of my best friends. Caliber is Brad, my best friend. All of them are them. And that's what honestly makes it very easy for me to draw their personalities into the book. So you'll see, Boulder's very expressionate with his face. Caliber is he talks with his hands. Reach is your creepy uncle. And Spectre, he's very nonchalant. He just kind of like sulks around. You'll see him leaning up against stuff. He's I don't want to say lanky. He is taller, but he's not. That's just his personality is very like laid back and chill. And Bones is the quiet giant. Ryan didn't really know anybody when I asked him to come in, so he comes in issue 4, and when I asked him, I said, hey, at the time, Obi, who's playing Reach, he was having some family stuff, so he was kind of in and out. And I liked having 4 players, so I said, hey, why don't you come in and play D&D with us? And he did. He filled the spot real quick, but he didn't know everybody that well. Like he knew Brad a little bit and never knew Terrell, knew Austin, I think, through mutual friends, but wasn't one of the core group. So in the very beginning, the first few issues he's around, he's the quiet giant. And like in issue 5, issue 6, there's a part in the book where he's a 7-foot tall cleric paladin build. So he's the healer / tank, and he's pretty big. And so they're talking about what to do. What do we need some marketing. And Austin's like, oh, I have an idea. And they put like a sandwich board on Bones, and they put him outside because he's a walking billboard. And in the scene, he grabs his phone and there's a group chat, and they're talking about Ninja Turtles in this group chat. And this actually all happens in real life. And I just kind of found a way to interject it into the book. And so they're in the group chat, and they're all talking about this stupid stuff. And he just sends a little meme that says, like, I immediately regret this decision. And it's from what is that movie with the Anchorman?
Yeah.
Anchorman. It's like, I immediately regret this decision. And I even put like the meme and kind of like digified it into the comic book, so people would see that our group chats are just as stupid as the comic, and it's also meta. But someone really recently asked me a similar question, and if you like the character in the book, you're most likely going to like the person in real life, because those personalities are very, very similar.
That's awesome. So do we see a version of you show up?
You do. Let's see, we're at issue 9. It's probably around issue between 10 and 12. My character shows up. I am the most boring, bland character in the book. And I am not a very tall human being to begin with, so there's lots of short jokes as soon as I show up. And mind you, I'm the same height as Terrell, and he even throws short jokes at me, and that creates a whole argument. But my character, he's just like any DM character, kind of comes and goes. I have a few characters that I made the personalities of, but none of them are me. Like I do, I'm in charge of Richter. Everybody except for like the core group is pretty much me. We have a lot of Brad and Terrell give me a lot of input on some of the other people, but there's a character that shows up named Seven, 7 of 12, because I'm a Star Trek fan too, and I like,
Nice.
But like I said, this book brings in King Arthur, so the idea of 12 is a thing. It's like a theme. And so no, my character's not a knight. I'm the anti-knight. I'm actually against the knights, but that's a whole story on its own. But my character is also meta because at some point I even said in the comic my character is going to be drawing them, and they're going to be like, "Are you trying to make money off of us? Like, where's our residuals? Like, you know, where's our kickback on this?" They're all about making money. Um, they launch an energy drink line at some point, which is why I did the energy drinks. And there's even I'm gonna by the time this comes out, the Kickstarter will have launched, and a buddy of mine and I have worked on a animated video of C.R.I.T. It's like an introduction video, and it uses a lot of assets from Unreal Engine. And we have this one issue of C.R.I.T. where I have a Gundam style robot. So he built this Gundam mech in the Unreal Engine, and we made that part of the trailer. And as he was building this and sending me like clips of what he's working on, I was like, well, this actually fits really well with one of the stories in C.R.I.T. And he's like, what do you mean? And I said, well, they never fight. They do fight giant robots, but they don't go to Japan and they don't fight a a Gundam. I said, but they do fight a kaiju. So I can just transpose the kaiju for the Gundam, since you're already kind of like working in that and without having to change so much of this thing. And it was a session where I let Brad DM the game. And so he's DMing it and I'm playing it. And the whole premise of it is it's actually a movie. So because it just none of the story fit within what we were doing, is kind of like this little side thing we did for fun. But I was like, how cool would it be? Because in the game they were going to Japan anyway. They went to Japan to, screen the film about them. And so this trailer you're going to see, it serves two purposes. It does show, my characters in action, gives a potential backer of the Kickstarter some idea of like, okay, this is the team. But also eventually it will be the trailer of the movie that we are going to draw, and it's going to be a book that starts at the back and goes forward just like a manga, but we're going to do it in comic book form. And the guy who's doing the video is going to draw the book too. He was like, I want to draw this would be fun. And I said, it's just going to be them showing up in Japan, fighting a giant robot. At the very end, I'm going to draw the last few pages, and it's going to be them turning the thing off and being like, that wasn't me. Like them just doing what people do when they see their favorite superhero on screen. That suit doesn't look like mine. I would do that. And it's just going to be them bickering back and forth about that. And that, again, it most of it would have taken place at the table. And if when they see all the fan art and things like that, they're always like, but my character doesn't look like that, or I wouldn't kick him like that. And so I was like, it would just be really meta and really funny if that's what we did with that whole entire trailer, is turn it into the film itself. So that's kind of the stuff that we do right there. Is if you can think about how stupid it could be, that's where we're going to go with it.
I love it. I love it. So let's talk a little bit more about the Kickstarter itself. The Kickstarter campaign will also offer remastered versions of issues 1 and 5.
Yes.
What's different about these versions?
Well, quite a bit. Issue 1 is a complete recoloring of everything. So issue 1, I didn't know what I was doing when I launched the Kickstarter. I had never colored a comic book before. I had never done any comic book stuff. And I did some of the coloring. A buddy of mine did some of the coloring, and then I flatted some stuff, and another girl came in and did some of the shading. It was a lot of hands involved in just getting that done. Again, because for me, it wasn't something that would turn into what it's turned into. So it's not that I didn't care how it looked, but it wasn't, I didn't know at the time the quality that I was really looking for in my comic books. And so I've always looked back at that book and said I could do better, but I didn't want to redraw it, because I think part of what people get with C.R.I.T. is every book is better than the last artistically, because I'm 5 years in now as an artist. I've done 9 books, and if every book takes me about 3,000 hours from start to finish, and you do, that's what 27,000 hours worth of drawing in 5 years. I just did the math, and that's a lot of hours. That's a lot of hours. When you really sit down and think about how much time goes in, I've put into this, my ninth book is clearly going to be better than my first book. And I don't want to go back and just start redrawing everything, because then I'm going to get to my issue 9 again, and then I'm going to be better. And it's like a circle. But I did say, hey, like if we recolor it and do a good coloring job on it, it'll make the art pop a little bit more. So I did the flat colors, and Nestor Radula, who does a lot of my cover work, he came in and did a lot of the finishes for me. And the end product is something that looks nothing like the first book, and it's the same line art.
Oh, wow.
So and I re-lettered some of it because I've gotten better at lettering. And it's my kid is one of my biggest critiques. Like, she will point things out. And I showed her the new issue 1, and she was like, "Oh wow, like that looks really good." And this is my kid who will tell me, "Oh wow, that really sucks." You know, I have a 15-year-old daughter. Of course, I can never be right anyway. But when I showed it to her, she was really excited. And so that was kind of like the solidifying fact to me. I was proud of it, but she was like, "That looks awesome." She's like, "Every page looks like it's been redrawn." And I'm like, "Nope." So you're getting a completely recolored, beautiful issue 1. I'm very proud of it. We're part of the reason for that too is this year, Homebrewed Comics, I've rebranded the entire thing. We've now grown. I've got 3 other people involved in the company with their titles. And we've got distribution. We're on Amazon. We're in Barnes and Noble. And so with this being the 5th year and all these big things happening, I said, I want to rebrand, and I also want to redo some of the things that I wasn't so proud of. And that issue 1, while I'm proud of where I was at, I said, I want to remaster it, like I just want to like redo it. And it's the only book I've ever done a cover for too. So kind of a big deal to me. And then issue 5, the original ending was drawn by a friend of mine who was going through a lot at the time. And he did issue 0 as well. And issue 0, looked great. End of issue 5, I could tell you really rushed it. And when I have people who pay for these books, and again, we're going to retail, and there's these bigger things going on. I just really wanted the ending of chapter 1 to have a very refined, professional, artistic approach to it. And one of the guys who does my covers, Robert Nix, he's also my new art editor. So when my ex-wife said, "Hey, like, there's nothing else I can teach you," I went to Robert, who's a phenomenal comic book artist. And now he rips apart everything I draw and, makes me better. But he's also a comic book artist that I respect. And I said, "Hey, these last 8 pages, would you be willing to redraw them? Just take them as they are and just redraw it in your style. That way we don't have to change anything. None of the dialogue has to change. We keep it the same, and we'll just put your art in there." And it's beautiful. So you're getting, a revamped issue 1, a revamped issue 5. That makes our chapter 1 really strong. And now I'm happy that I'm going into chapter 2, and like I feel very confident in my first chapter. Especially, like I said, this being the 5th year and me rebranding the entire company, I just wanted to kick it off with like, "Hey, we mean business."
So in addition to He Who Would Be King and the remastered versions, what other add-ons would people be able to pick up when they back this Kickstarter?
So every Kickstarter I do, you can get the back issues. So that will be on the Kickstarter as add-ons. I always have a tier, the catch-up tier, which has all the books. You'll be able to get Homebrewed issue 1. So that includes Caspian Porter, Celestial Knight, and Bigfoot Knows Karate. Those are all the titles under Homebrewed right now. There's the remastered edition of 1, the remastered edition of 5, and also a 5 different individual glasses. They are rock glasses, but they're really whiskey glasses. You just can't put whiskey glasses on there. You can drink anything you want out of them, but they're the size of a whiskey glass. And they are Samedi, Spectre, Caliber, Boulder, and then the Homebrewed logo. And what I'm going to do either I haven't decided if it's going to be a stretch goal or if it's going to be on the next Kickstarter. I'm going to do 5 more and release the other ones. So kind of like the old McDonald's stuff where you would collect the glasses. Now I'm going to start a thing with the Kickstarter, and you're going to collect those because Samedi drinks rum. In the book, their boss Shaw is drinking a whiskey glass, and I was like, okay, I think that'd be cool. I always do something unique. We've done figures before, we've done statues, we've done stuffed animals, we've done energy drinks. I have yet to do whiskey glasses, so we're gonna do that. I always do a bookmark. I always do a t-shirt. I do your traditional, stuff, but I always have one thing that's kind of unique to what I want to do. And that was the unique thing I chose for this Kickstarter.
And as somebody who has backed a ton of Kickstarters over the years, that, my friend, is very dangerous for somebody like me because I'd be like, oh yeah, well, I have to get that.
I approach everything with C.R.I.T as like, what do I want? As a collector, what do I want? Because I grew up with comic books. I grew up with collector cards. I grew up with, like I said, the McDonald's, Happy Meal thing where even as an adult, you wanted those Batman glasses. And that's just the stuff I look at is like, what would appeal to me? And I go and I see what's available, because I also look at timelines, cost of the products, because those things all take place because I don't want to choose something that's $300 to make because then I have to make a profit on that too.
Mm-hmm.
I don't want to break someone's bank over a comic book, but I do want to have some add-ons that are, relatively inexpensive that can build the brand a little bit. There is one thing that I started doing with issue 6 that moved into issue 7 and now will stay with issue 8, and I will be doing this every book from here on out. I do my final tier as a metal tier, and that has everything in the Kickstarter and a limited edition metal cover. It's actually printed on aluminum metal.
Oh, wow.
Yes. So this book will be the same. The cover has yet to be revealed. It will be done by the launch of the Kickstarter. My colorist, Lewis, is doing the cover, and that will be on that bottom tier with everything else. And I just really like the metal covers because I'm a 90s kid. And when I found someone who could print on aluminum, I reached out and I said, do you have minimums? What is the cost? And I was like, there's no minimum to order, so I'm not going to break the bank if I only get 5 or 10 of these. And to me, they're just awesome. And so I actually had a couple extra from my first run at a con. And this is before I really thought about doing it continually. And a woman had never heard of C.R.I.T before, came to the table, bought every book that I had. Now, mind you, I had 6 books at the time. So she bought 6 books. And then she goes to the metal cover and she's like, oh, well, I want this too. And I was like, well, just so you know, you have one. And that's an expensive book. It's expensive to print. It's a $30 comic book. And she's like, well, I don't have it on metal though. And so she just bought 6 books from me. And then she buys that. And I was like, to me, I don't know if I don't know a series and I get everything on the table and they have arguably a gimmick cover, right? Like, cool, let me go read these. And if I like it, then I'll come back and pick it up. Nope, she bought it right there. And a little while later, I was walking around the con, Heroes Con, and she found me and walked up and she said, are you going to have issue 7 with a metal cover? And I looked at her and I said, well, did you like it? And like, did you read the book? She's like, yeah. I'm like, well, then yes, I'm going to have a metal cover because like, if you didn't know anything about my book and you picked up all of them, then you picked up the metal cover and then you come up to me and ask me for more, then of course I'm going to continue to do those. And so the metal covers really took off. Cons really enjoyed them. And so I will keep that on the Kickstarter as well. But it is a limited tier because I like having things that, for my backers, especially those high tier backers, that they know that's it. That's all that's been printed and we're not going to do it again.
So you are the writer and artist on C.R.I.T. Is there one aspect of the creative process that you might enjoy other than others?
It's give and take. There's some times where I really enjoy the writing process. And I just like, for instance, right now I work for Jackson Hewitt in taxes, and I run almost every store in the state of North Carolina. So from December through April, I don't really have a lot of time to draw because I have so many employees in stores, like, and I just don't have that ability to sit down every day and put my hour or two in. But I do have the ability when I'm sitting in front of a computer waiting for I'm on hold with the IRS, or you know what I mean? Like there's times in my day where I have that downtime to where I can put brain power into writing. That's when I like writing more than art, because art takes me away from my 24-hour a day job. But in the summer, when I have nothing going on, I love drawing. I will stay up till 2 in the morning sometimes. That's why with this book, I'm launching it. I didn't want to launch in April, but the other guys really weren't ready and didn't have their stuff together for a few things. And I was like, well, neither do I, but I have all summer to get this book done. And I'm a single guy doing nothing in the summer except drawing. I'm going to turn my TV or my music on. I recently got into Warhammer 40K, so I'm probably going to listen to a lot of Warhammer 40K, like YouTube shows, and just draw this book. It's written. I already know the flow of the book. And to me, like there's this balance. This issue that we're putting on Kickstarter right now is something I've been dying to do since the first day, because realistically, Crit is a Arthurian tale with a superhero aesthetic, And if I told somebody that on issue 1, they're going to be like, "Where's King Arthur?" And they're going to go all the way through 8 issues and go, "You lied to me. There's no King Arthur." And now I get to really show King Arthur. So I love the evolution of Crit. And it all happened at the table. So everything is a natural progression of things. But King Arthur was a must-have for me from day one. I love the lore of King Arthur, and I said there's just so much there that I can tap into and make my own and have some fun with it, that I really wanted it day one. And I didn't want to shoehorn it in, but it like a natural progression of things. So we're there and I'm happy. But also when we started all of this, I didn't know that it would take off with the comic book the way it has. So being able to sit down and kind of write what we're about to unveil, this was a true role play session that we sat in. And there was a portion of me when we were going to this issue, I went to the guys and I said, most of our books are, banter, action, dumb story, puns, and then like the cliffhanger, or sometimes we close out the story depending on how the game ended. I said this one's different because this was a role play session. This is you guys interacting with the NPCs and finding out backstory. This is the NPCs talking amongst themselves and giving lore. And the action really takes place in some of the dramatic dialogue that will happen because there's arguments within the team, and some of the battles that you'll see Arthur in, and it's a very narrative driven book. And I've never done that with Crit because it's a tabletop game. So you have a bunch of banter and fighting. And so I was really nervous going into it, but we started working on the script because generally what I'll do is I'll listen to the book and I'll storyboard it while I'm I'll get 4 or 5 pages in, stop the recording, get those done, come back. With this, I was like, I really need to have the plan before we go in, because the flow of the narration, when we get to the dialogue, I want it to all flow the way we need it to. And I don't like me as the writer and the team, we already, because we've played this, we know more than is even going into this issue. And I don't like just dropping everything because I feel that can overwhelm a reader. So I say, hey, let's refine where this story is. Let's take the recordings and figure out what really the player, the game, the characters knew, and differentiate what the players know versus what the characters know. Because you have that out of game discussion. It's like, as a DM, to keep them involved, it's like, this is where I want the story to go, and this is what I want this character to be. And they're like, oh, okay, I get it now. That's why we're doing this, And so I was really, really nervous about the book, but now I'm even more excited because I'm challenging myself as an artist in the book with some of the way I'm laying out the pages for the narration to kind of kick in. I'm taking a lot of inspiration from the early Spawn books that would do that. Huge 90s Image fan. So of course I was like, where am I going to go? Where it all kicked off for me. And I'm giving, readers like an actual story, and which is going to be a lot of fun. And I remember when I told the team this story I had come up with in my head for King Arthur, I'm like, oh, that's really cool. Okay. And so again, excited to share that with everybody. And again, with Crit, I never go in thinking what's the best way for the audience. I think about like, do I like this? Does my team like this? And we have fun with it. So I really, at my core, I know everyone's going to enjoy it because it still has some of that slapstick dumb comedy. Because you can't put me and my friends in a room for 5 minutes and not have something stupid happen. So it's there.
Nice. So you touched on it earlier, but let's talk a little bit more about Homebrewed Comics. Publishes Crit. You mentioned a few of the other comics that are now under Homebrewed. So what can fans expect from that?
So for one, it's indie comics and you get a lot of passion. When originally it was Drew who does Caspian Porter. We were talking about this originally about merging our two companies. And he was okay going under the Homebrewed banner, because Homebrewed really means independent, right?
Mm-hmm.
So I when I was thinking about it, I'm like, I pretty much named my company Independent Comics. And so I was like, we should just keep this. And he liked it. And we were working on some things, the Amazon and these collected editions that we put out. And then Dan Price, who does Bigfoot Knows Karate, joins in. And, he had been doing it himself as well. Like we'd all been kind of going in the same direction by ourselves, and we were getting burned out because indie comics is not an easy game. It's not. There's a lot of stress, especially when you put deadlines on yourself. And then we brought Dennis in, actually very recently with Celestial Night. And I looked at all the titles we had, and every title has a long history that went into creating it. It wasn't just someone sitting at a table going, oh, that sounds cool, I'm going to make a comic book out of it, and put no effort into it.
Mm-hmm.
These guys have sat down with their characters for years and built these stories, and none of the stories are the same. It's not like every book is Crit 2.0. Crit is really the only title we have that falls into that category of slapstick dumb comedy with a little bit of drama, a lot of action. It's, to me, it's our Saturday morning cartoon, right?
Mm-hmm.
And then you have Caspian Porter, which does have some serious elements to it, but it does have its funny side too. And Caspian Porter is a Han Solo style character mixed with John from The Fifth Element. I love that marriage of character. Like, this guy hates his job, probably arguably sucks at his job because he hates it. And then you have Han Solo, who goes splunking around the galaxy and just, whatever he can do to make money. And I love that. I also am a huge fan of sci-fi. So I love that it was a sci-fi book, and he has a talking robot that looks like a trash can to me. And they go on they land on a planet where there's dinosaurs, and I'm like, okay, I'm sold. You gave me sci-fi dinosaurs, I'm in, right? And Bigfoot Knows Karate, kind of, I don't need to even tell you what the book's about because the title says it all. It's literally Benny, Bigfoot, is fighting other, cryptid characters like Kung Fu Thulu and Chupacabra with a shotgun. So, you have a lot of tongue-in-cheek humor with the names, but there is a dramatic backstory to this character and the world he lives in, and you find out why he's being pitted against all of these different cryptids, and that story kind of like unfolds in front of you. And again, it's a unique story. You can have Bigfoot, but have you ever had Bigfoot in a gi beating the crap out of Cthulhu, who's a kung fu artist? Like, and I won't give away any of that because I do think that every one of the books on our label, I was I was picky. I've had a lot of people that said, "Hey, like I want to work with you because you don't see many people in 5 years putting out 9 books." Okay.
Mhm.
I take the mantle of hard worker really seriously, and people want crit, so I'm going to work hard to put this book out, and I want people with me that work just as hard. And Dan has years of back history. He actually has been in indie comics. I think he said close to 15, 20 years. Um, he started a long time ago, was doing cons. He had a character that I won't even talk about for him, but it was a very funny story that he wrote and did for a long time. And if you ever interview him, he can go into the backstory of that one. But he was doing that, got out of any comics, come back in with Bigfoot, and when he comes back in, he meets me and Drew. And Drew's been doing this since about 2015. Drew's really good with anthology work. He knows the digital publishing side, so he handles all those digital releases for us, and Dan does our marketing and I do the physical release. So, we have like I said, the distribution deal that kicks off fourth quarter. So we can get into comic book stores. That's my job. Dan does all our marketing. He comes up with the different ideas, which I'll go into a key thing that he came up with soon. And then you have Drew, who does a lot of our digital. Well, then we bring in Celestial Knight with Dennis, and Dennis is going to start working on our Whatnot stores and kind of go into that realm with some of the limited and homage covers that we have to gain some traction there. Well, Celestial Knight is your traditional cape. If you think 90s superhero, you get Celestial Knight. He's bestowed with celestial powers. He can fly. He has, a magical weapon, and he fights a kaiju in the middle of downtown Manhattan, right? In issue 1. And he has a dog that he can talk to. So there's a little bit of drama, a little bit of personal history for Dennis in that book. But, he's just finished his second issue, and our Kickstarter lineup is Crit and then Bigfoot in May. And then in June, we have our crossover, Celestial Knight versus Caspian Porter. So, and that issue is fun because it's essentially an Amazon delivery gone wrong. And, so every title isn't the same. You've got these guys. Celestial Knight's been in Dennis's head for 35 years. We have, I would say, it's like close to 30 years of talent between all 4 of us.
Wow.
Within comics, and I'm probably the shortest term with 5 years. But we're dedicated to the books. We're dedicated to our fans, and end of the day, we're always going to put our best foot forward with everything that we do. So every Kickstarter that you jump on, this is a big deal. This is, if I don't mention this on the live, Dan will have a connection with me. It's his baby. We took some notes from Image, and we also learned from their mistakes with this. They had Image Zero, where you would collect all the barcodes, you'd send them $10, they'd send you a book, right? So what we've done is we have Homebrewed Zero, but it's not just pinup art and random pieces of story that we've already published. We have 5 stories going into Homebrewed Zero that are side stories. Like my story is the caffeinated critters, and it's the cat, the chameleon, and the owl working with the robot in the coffee shop. But the robot isn't he's his name is Dr. Roombato, and he's a Roomba with a robot body put on top. And if you know cats, they hate vacuums. So how does a cat work around the vacuum? And it's just going to be some dumb, it's like slapstick comedy inside the coffee house. And the reason that I chose that, when we were talking about, hey, like, what are we going to bring to the table? Each of us are going to do 6 pages. Chris, what's yours? And I said, well, that's a no-brainer for me. My kid's been asking me forever to do, some of my like comic work with me, and she wants to do the animals. So I'm just going to write a 6-page story about the animals. I'm going to draw it. She's going to color it. And she's phenomenal. Like, so I get to publish my kids' art, which is going to be a lot of fun.
That's awesome.
And, so you get this cool little side story of the crit animals, And then Bigfoot Knows Karate. There's a bunny in there. There's some side characters that Dennis is going to have. And then you go into Caspian, and he has a whole slew of sci-fi different stories that happen within the Caspian Porter universe. And Dennis is working on his Celestial Knight story. Again, you have side characters. These are not stories that would naturally go into our books, but they are little pieces of the universe that help make it bigger for you. And then our cover artist, Mo Lubison, who's done pretty much a cover for everybody, he asked when we announced this, can I submit my 6-page story? And he has a fantasy story that he is submitting. So it's this kind of like fantasy drama love story that's going to go in there. And again, it doesn't fit with anything else that we do because we don't have high fantasy and we don't really have like a dramatic story like that. So I was like, that actually is really cool because we have the comedy, we have the serious action, we have your typical, cape book, and then we're going to have this like fantasy drama. So a lot to offer for someone just to go to our Kickstarters and back every single one. So when you back Crit, you're going to get a coupon, and on that coupon is going to have my 3 digits for the coupon code. And then you go back Bigfoot Knows Karate, you get another 3 digits. And when you back Caspian, you get the last 3. And the way we've also worked it is, since I kick it off, if you miss my Kickstarter, my book will also be available on Dan's Kickstarter. So if you just come in, at the end of May and you miss Crit, well, you can back Dan and also pick up that copy of Crit to get your coupon. And same with the Caspian versus Celestial Knight book. Everything will be available there. So if you miss anything and you just come in for Caspian, you can pick up those other books and really take part in that. And then at the very end in October, we're shipping all the books. Every book gets shipped in October. You'll have all 3 coupon codes. You go to our website, you type it in, fill in the shipping information, and you'll get your copy of Homebrewed Zero.
That's awesome. That's awesome.
But it's all original work. Like I said, we're not going to have a picture of Troll in a book that never comes out. We did learn that lesson. Nothing against those guys, but they tried a lot of cool things and not everything always panned out. So 33 years later, we'll just figure out how to make it work the right way.
So do you have any cons lined up in the near future?
Yep, I've got IshCon, which is a toy con in North Carolina. That is the 17th and 18th of May. I'm excited for that because there's not a lot of comic book publishers there. And I have some toys of my characters, so I kind of fit in, and they were more than welcoming for me. So that will be a fun day. I've got Heroes Con. Dennis and I will be there with a friend of ours, Jerry, from E4 Comics. We always do like a 3-table split. And you can't miss us. We'll be right by the bathrooms. They always put us up against the wall right there. And we do not complain because everybody's got to use the bathroom. So we'll be set up, in Heroes Con in North Carolina. And in November, I also have North Carolina Comic Con in Raleigh. Those are my 3 cons that I have set up. I'm still trying to figure out some summer stuff because I had a month open up that I don't have to travel now. So I want to book something in August. So I'll keep that up. But we also have Free Comic Book Day. Dennis and I will be at Collecting Problems down in Fort Mill, South Carolina. We set up there all day with our books and just having fun on Free Comic Book Day.
So how can people find you online?
Easiest thing to do is go to homebrewedcomics.com. While you're there, download your free issue of Crit. Issue 0 is free. Sign up for all 3 Kickstarters. It's right on the landing page. And if you're on social media, all the social media links are on there. If you can't navigate onto the website, understandable. Instagram is the easiest way to find us. That's at Homebrewed Comics. I have a link tree there with everybody's Instagram page, the website, Kickstarters. That thing stays updated all the time. So those are the 2 best places. I do recommend going to the website, downloading your, issue 0 for free, because if you like it, you can get in and check out the rest of the books as well.
So one more time, give us the info on Crit, He Who Would Be King.
Crit, He Who Would Be King, the issue number 8, 9th issue in the series. I hate that issue 0, but we're going to be stuck with it forever. Launches April 30th at 8 p.m. on Kickstarter, Eastern Standard Time. I will be doing a live launch on the Instagram page if you'd like to join in and hang out with us as we, kick this book off. I think every Kickstarter I've done, we've funded within 10 to 15 minutes. We have some really big turnouts.
Wow.
Yeah, I love the live launches. I get really engaged with everybody. I have a lot of guests on there. Sometimes we do some giveaways. And this book, like I said, brings in King Arthur, and it's not your typical King Arthur, as you can probably see by some of the artwork. He's got some sci-fi elements to him. I'm not going to give away anything right now, but come check it out, hang out with us, go to the website, download your free issue of Crit, and then come hang out on Wednesday and back the Kickstarter and get some cool rock glasses.
All right, Chris Sahloff, thank you so much for taking the time to talk to us. Crit, He Who Would Be King. I will have the link to the Kickstarter in the description. Great talking to you. Have a good one.
Thank you so much.
That's going to do it for this episode of The Geek Awakens. If you have any questions, comments, or concerns, then shoot us an email at thegeekawakenspodcast@gmail.com.
It would be a shame if you didn't follow us on Facebook and Instagram at The Geek Awakens Podcast or on Blue Sky at The Geek Awakens.
Music provided and created by E. Cannon Beats.
Logo created and designed by Shay McCain.
That's it for this week. We're boldly gone.